Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast, RPG Site's weekly podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. Joining me, I have Josh Torres.
Hi, hello.
Adam Vitale.
Good morning.
And Chaomin Wu.
How's it going?
No James. Josh is here. No James, no Mikhail today. So be the four of us holding down the fort. We're recording this on June 27th. So we're finally starting to close up all of our final thoughts on Summer Game Fest and go into the summer months. We're all looking at our calendars for later in the year, September, October, and of course November, for all the big releases, both RPGs, of course, for our site, but then outside of RPG space, lots of big games slowly starting to dot the landscape, with the big, elephant in the room being, of course, Grand Theft Auto. Not going to be a game that you're going to hear on this podcast a lot, and at least referred to directly, because it's not a game that's really in our purview, but it's a sort of thing where that's going to, affect everything in the gaming landscape ever as it releases. So it'll come up in context here and there, I'm sure. Obviously, that's releasing on November 19th, which is why every other game in the world is releasing in September or October. So we'll look forward to that. This week's episode of the podcast, I'm looking at kind of the rundown we have here. Of course, we don't have a lot of major announcements. All those big announcements were kind of back in, the early to mid-June during the Summer Game Fest months. So we do have a handful of things. Capcom has had a quick little direct showcase this week, touching on some, previously released or announced upcoming games. Arc System Works had a couple of smaller announcements that we'll touch in on. A handful of indie games from across the spectrum. There's I was looking at what we're going to talk about. There's a Korean indie game. There's a Chinese indie Pokemon. There's a indie game from a 5-person studio in Florida that has a game that they announced earlier this month. So kind of in that indie AA space this week. It seems like this is where we're going to be primarily residing. And then Adam, I know that you were able to. You have basically been working your butt off over the last week, wrapping up a whole bunch of different previews from Summer Game Fest, games that you saw, interviews, opportunities that you had. I'm wondering if we should start with those, just to kind of put a bookend on all the things that you're able to see earlier this month. Just because you put so much work in 5 different features that you put up over the last 7 days.
Yeah, we can. That makes sense. I also want to point out that June 28th, which might be when you're listening to this podcast, is the 20th anniversary of RPG Site. None of us were around 20 years ago
I wasn't born
on the
yet.
site. Yeah, none of us were born yet. We were. I'm actually, I think, besides Alex, who is the founder and owner, I think I'm the longest tenured person still active.
And I guess and Mike technically as well, which is our back end engineer,
Right? Yeah.
on the site. But yes,
Yeah, and also a co-owner, because Mike and Alex both own it to some degree.
Yes.
I do not. I just run it. But yeah,
do so much work for it. They won't thought that you're a co-founder.
but yeah, tomorrow is our 20th anniversary. I've been here 13 years-ish, 14 years-ish. And yeah, we have some stuff planned for it, and I think Alex is going to post some sort of reflective piece on that, and we have some projects in the works. So look forward to that. All right, I guess what do I start with? So yeah, we had Summer Game Fest earlier in the month. I know some of you listening might be already considering Summer Game Fest. That was forever ago. Why are we still talking about it? Well, it takes a while to write up all these previews, right? There was a lot there, and some of the some of the things were embargoed for later. And there's actually still, I can think of still one more game that was there that is still embargoed, that people have played but cannot talk about for a bit yet. It's kind of the way these things sort of work. Anyways, so yeah, I spent most of last week kind of wrapping up some of the things, impressions I saw, some of the interviews I had on some of the games that were there. Let me just start with some of the previews that I had. Let me start with the preview that was probably the least, the smallest preview. What? The least good.
I was joking. The least good.
Well, actually, Josh saw this one too. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3. This was a small mini theater presentation, not hands-on. So the year before, we got to play Sparking Zero for a bit. But this year, kind of in the same area, not a hands-on, but we got to see a little video of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3. Now, I'm not a big I'm not like I've actually watched pretty much every Dragon Ball anime, from the original to Super, but not some of the movies, But I'm not super big on like where the
Did you
current
watch
state of Dragon Ball
Daima?
is. Yes, I did watch Daima.
Or like superhero movie.
I did not watch that. I've seen most of them. Like most of the shows, not all the movies. Anyways, Xenoverse 3, we saw a presentation of it. The embargo was earlier this week. If you're a Dragon Ball head, you probably saw the trailer. It takes place in Age 1000, which I guess is like West City, which is like the home city of most Dragon Ball Z-ish stuff in the future. And it has like this Great Saiyaman squad, and there are all these different characters in that Great Saiyaman outfit that Gohan wore in the anime, right? And they're there to protect West City. Goku isn't there, Vegeta isn't there, at least not in the story. They're of course there in some weird meta fashion.
The character models are there.
But they're not in the story. So like the main character is like this guy named Brett. There's like his lady friend who's there, and then there's also like these two like player created characters that were given names by the fandom of Jane 1000 and John 1000. Jane is a human, or an Earthling is what they're called in this series. John is a Saiyan. I guess they were given names officially of Sen and Nate. So if you're ever wondering if we're going to get a Saiyan named Nate, yes, we got one, I guess. But anyways, with the presentation we saw, basically we got the demonstrator played as Sen, the female Earthling, and we went into a kind of a cooperative mission. Well, I guess let me roll back a little bit. You wake up in like an apartment in West City, Age 1000. It's like a really messy apartment, and they told us that like this is basically your home base, and as you progress through the game, you can probably tidy it up, add things. I'm assuming there'll be some sorts of like collectibles or whatever that you can put on display. I'm assuming they didn't really show that. And then we walked around West City for a little tiny bit, and they showed, for example, like, oh, there's Vegeta Saiyan arc standing over there. What's he doing there? We don't know. And I'm assuming it's going to be just some sort of like, remember this that happened in the anime that you can fight or play or collect Saiyan arc Vegeta. But anyways, we were given a mission, or they were given a mission, and then we went to a snow area that was like a cooperative mission, like a 4-player mission. You can kind of think of this as like, I don't know, like a Monster Hunter deployment, or even like a relink mission, or some sort of cooperative action RPG, right? 4 players. Our demonstrator was playing as like the female Earthling, but there's also like the Saiyans, of course. You can play as the Frieza race, which I don't know if that race has ever been given a proper name, but whatever race Frieza is, and then like a Buu, like a Majin Buu type character. And there'll be more, of course. It's like the 4 different characters. We were in like a snow area, flying around, beating up all these kind of random enemies, like mooks with it looks like a Sparking Zero or a Tenkaichi type game, broadly. Fighting all these mooks, you have like your 4 different main attack combos that you can use, or like special abilities like Kamehameha, Kaioken. And they said, of course, these are customizable. You can pick and choose what you want. You get a super move, which in this case was Super Kamehameha. You can pick a character to like do a soul assist with you, which in this case was Vegeta with Gallic Gun. Just like another ability you can kind of swap in and out. Then at the end of this mission, which was like a 20-minute thing, they faced off against Broly, like Super Saiyan full power Broly or whatever. And it kind of was like, like a Monster Hunter raid or whatever. Like this guy's got a ton of health. You got to combine, keep just willing him down, combining your attacks on him to try to do as much damage as possible while avoiding his big sweeping arcing attacks. There was even like an attack where he like explodes around the battlefield and you need to like hide behind icicles to not take damage. And then during this, the demonstrator pulled out like an ability to transform into future Trunks. Like you're just playing as a Earthling, but you have this ability to transform into a different character. So he transformed into future Trunks. This is called like Soul Switch, and was able to use like future Trunks' like special moves. Heat Dome, I believe, is what his move is called, that he pulls on Imperfect Cell in the anime. And yeah, and then that lasts for like 40 seconds, and that's what we saw. The trailer that they released alongside these preview embargo kind of shows a lot of these similar things, and this was also in magazines and stuff too. One thing that's kind of like, if you care about story at all, one thing that's kind of a big mystery, and I saw some people joking about, is Bulma is there. Like, why is Bulma there? How is Bulma there? Did she not only wish for the Dragon Balls to make her forever young, but to make her immortal? I don't know. She's got a weird ring. She's got a weird ring around her neck. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, because like I guess the chronology of this game is like it takes place in Age 1000, and so it takes place like 100+ years after Xenoverse 2. So there's like a direct continuation of storyline there. And like and to be clear, like when they were showing off like the party play, it was like with 3 other bots. I don't know if they've ever confirmed or denied or haven't said anything about how multiplayer was like supported. I didn't catch up with the presentation, but I feel like when you see it, it definitely would lend itself well to like a 4-player multiplayer party. I guess they did in the sense that I believe in an interview they said that they're supporting crossplay with this. So I guess that it does confirm, hey, there will be multiplayer in it
in some fashion. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I know. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 has like limited multiplayer. It's like in certain modes, but not through the story.
Yeah,
I know this game is supposed to have some, but again, I don't know exactly what it allows you to do or not. So
exactly, but it has potential. Like I can see it being a lot of fun. I think when I think about Xenoverse 2, from what I hear, it's like there's RPG like stats progression, but the actual gameplay is more like a fighter. And I wonder if and this one seems to lend itself more into like in the RPG fashion, because like your skills are like on a cooldown, less so than like some sort of key like number or charge level. Like when you do a skill, like it goes on a timed cooldown in Xenoverse 3. So yeah, it might be. I hope it's really awesome, and it's sort of like that, like you said, Monster Hunter or Relink, but for Dragon Ball. If they flesh that out, it could be a lot of fun for a lot of hours. It's though I did make a joke with friends saying that like they should really lean into the Monster like Hunter aspect of like chopping off parts. So like when you're going against Broly, just like chop off his arms and go make our new weapons and armor out of it. No. Which, Dragon Ball has been violent.
That's how you unlock like Broly hairstyle or whatever.
That's right. Yeah. And they also tease that like, when you're playing a Saiyan character, they do have like their own Super Saiyan transformation. And you showed that like in the, I guess, most recent trailer as well. And they could go up like Super Saiyan 3 and so forth. But yeah, it's a very early look. I think it's still next year, right, Adam?
yeah, it's 2027.
Oh yeah.
All right, I guess next preview. Here's a small one. This is one that I wasn't really planning on doing a preview for, but it sort of fits our purview. So one of the events that we were invited for at Summer Game Fest was basically like the Nintendo area. It's like a series of tents. Now, it wasn't Nintendo first party. It was just, a collection of third-party games on Nintendo Switch 2. And there were some games there like Trine 6 or My Time at Evershine or a few others. But anyways, one of the games that I saw there was Armatus, which was, do you remember Godfall? Which was like the first PS5 exclusive.
I do remember God, for better or for worse.
Anyways, this is their next game from Counterplay Games. The game I was thinking of before was they also had Demi and the Fractured Dream there, which is from like Annapurna, and it basically looks like Wind Waker, and that's actually pretty charming. Anyways, Armatus. So Armatus is like a roguelike third-person shooter, and it's got that sort of like Darksiders-ish sort of art style. I don't know how you describe that, but
Western comic book fantasy.
Yeah, like if you told me this was based off of like some sort of like graphic novel or something, I'd be like, yeah, maybe. It's not, at least as far as I know, but if you told me it was, I wouldn't doubt you, because it has that sort of art style. But this is a roguelike third-person shooter, and this is sort of similar to my takeaway from Crimson Moon that I had like last week, which is also like mission-based roguelike, where it's like, hey, playing this 20-minute demo was really fun. Like moment to moment, it was exciting. It was upbeat, high paced, high action, energetic. I'm on my toes. So it's a third person, shooter game, but unlike, a Gears or something where you're crouching behind, chest high walls, you're always running around shooting enemies with your like main weapon. You have like dashes, you have like a melee attack that you can use when they're close to you. You have different sorts of abilities you can pick up. Like lots of roguelike games, there's like a boon system that you pick, one of 3. I talked about this before with Crimson Moon, and you can imagine, like literally imagine the sorts of combinations you may be able to get with certain weapons and certain boons, and like, wow, this would be cool if I could stack this on top of that and get some sort of build going. And here's the problem though with demoing a game like this is I played it for 20 minutes. I did not get to the end of a run, nor did I die. The demo was timed for 20 minutes, and that's as long as I played, and they just cut me off. So that means like I didn't really get to play a boss fight, so I don't really know how those work. I didn't die, so I don't know quite like how like I couldn't really get any sort of grasp on how like the looping progression sort of works in this roguelike game. Like I don't know how I start over, how that works, or how does the end of the run work. So that was similar to my issue with demoing Crimson Moon. It's like, yeah, this was fun to play for 20 minutes. Now, does it maintain itself for run after run after run? Is there enough variety in the types of rooms that you're going through? Is there in the types of enemies that you're facing? Does the progression make sense in terms of going through these runs? Do you feel like you're getting stronger, getting more abilities, or what have you? And unfortunately, it's hard to grasp any of that, which makes these sorts of games hard to demo. But moment to moment, it was fun. It's the sort of game where you're always moving and you have to pay attention to your environment. Like I am kind of like sidestepping, backpedaling, shooting, all the time at all these enemies surrounding you. And the last thing you want is to get like trapped in a corner and you're like, well, damn it, I'm going to get surrounded and these enemies are dangerous. If they get close to you, you're dead kind of thing. So that's Armatus from Counterplay Games. Supposed to come out later this year. I played the Switch version because this is in a Nintendo area, Switch 2 version. But it's coming out to basically everything. I played it on handheld, and it's one of those things where I got used to it pretty quickly. Like the performance and the visuals didn't distract me from enjoying that demo. But yeah, so that was Armatus. Any questions on that?
No,
Not really a question, just commiserating that, well, I don't know, that's a term, that sometimes demoing a game and then having like a earnest impressions is difficult because you're like, I didn't even get to see the run, or there's so many things I wanted to see, but based on the way it was set up, I couldn't. Like, yeah, so I feel you basically.
All right, so let's see. Okay, let's go with the next preview. Sea of Remnants. So, do you know what Sea of Remnants is?
I think of it
I'll go for it.
As I forget if they're Chinese or Korean, like Eastern Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, so it's from NetEase, so Chinese, and it is like a free-to-play. Apparently, they don't like calling it an RPG, but it's like a free-to-play seafaring pirate adventure RPG, everything kitchen sink game.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I was preparing my preview for this. This was at Summer Game Fest. It was actually in like the main kind of like headquarter area of the show, of the Playdays area. This was the one on the main stage show that had that kind of annoying like music video trailer that was like maybe sort of like catchy, but also kind of obnoxious. I was actually going through like I was actually going through some of the different trailers for this game, and I kind of realized that almost all of them are like this, where it's like some sort of like music video, like maybe even licensed music, playing like very quick clips of this game. Maybe not even like real like gameplay clips, but just like the models like dancing or singing or whatever, and then like kind of intersperse like very quick clips of gameplay. And if that's all you saw about this game, you'd be like, what the hell is this? Because the trailers don't really show a whole lot of actual real gameplay, or it's very like stitched together in a strange way. That seems to be the marketing angle they're going for. I actually got to play it, and this demo was by far my longest demo at Summer Game Fest. I played it for 90 minutes. I wasn't planning on it. I was just, sitting down on the couch. I didn't have a timer. Like, let me just play this demo to the end. And it's like, over time I realized, oh, this demo I don't think ends. I think it just keeps going and going and going. It was very strange, and it was kind of all over the place and very disjointed. I actually saw Polygon put up a preview from a friend of mine, Tomas, also was like, this Sea of Remnants is all over the place. It's like, yeah, that was my takeaway. You like start out like in solitude on like a little rowboat in the middle of like, I assume the Sea of Remnants, like slowly rowing towards like a light in the distance. It's almost like self-reflecting or something, like moody. And then like as soon as you get to the light, you're like thrown into like a gigantic crimson-hued battle with a gigantic kraken on a big galleon type ship. And I'm like, I don't really know how I got here, but let's take out this kraken thing that's wrecking havoc. And there's lightning bolts everywhere and really upbeat like metal music. And to be honest, I wasn't sure how much I was actually in control here, if it was really scripted in terms of like dealing damage, avoiding damage, or whatever. I really couldn't get a grasp on if I was like actually, if what I did actually mattered. And then after that, like my character wakes up in like a scientist lab. I'm like, I don't know how we got here either, but here we are. And the scientist wakes me up and it's like, you have no memories. Well, maybe you can learn something at the bar, blah, blah, blah. And the art style in this game, I actually do think is one of its strongest suits. It's very unique. It's like wooden puppets. Like all the characters in this game are kind of like animated wooden puppets. And it's something I've never really like seen before. But I think it gives this game like a really unique flavor and how it looks. And it's got a lot of like that sort of comic book onomatopoeia, like actions that happen in the in like the cutscenes, like whooshes and bangs or whatever. And like it's kind of a fun mismatch. And I actually think that's probably one of the game's strongest suits is like just the visual style of it. But as I was playing through this demo, and this is where you could tell it was an early demo, like it was all in English, like all the text and whatnot, but some of the menus were clearly unfinished. And a lot of like the voiceover, which was also in English, didn't match the text. And I don't even mean just like a couple words different here and there. It was just like sometimes the voiceover was completely different sentences than what the text box said. And I was kind of like, should I be paying attention to the voiceover or the text? I don't know, because they're saying different things. It felt very early, and that, you know, it's like I understand it's a demo, but it also leaves me a little bit like confused. It's kind of a unfinished, you know, slice of the game that I'm playing, right? Anyways, I go into the bar, and at the bar, I met a character named RS, who is sort of, I guess, like the series or the game's mascot. RS is like a blonde lady pirate. She's even on like the cover art of the game. And she's like this really like kind of energetic, like treasure obsessed pirate, kind of like a Nami from One Piece, only more like kind of kooky. And she has like a lot of personality, and I kind of figured this was actually probably like most fun part of the demo was seeing the antics she got into, and it was a little bit like slapstick in this regard. And after some hijinks in the bar, joined up with her to do like a turn-based battle. And I guess this is the main battle system of the game, although I didn't get to see a lot of it. And so in the turn-based battle, you have like this dice roll system where when you do an attack, it also rolls a dice alongside it. And if your dice like matches a certain number, like a certain extra bonus can appear. Like, for example, getting another attack in, you can get like new turns or whatever. There's also like a boost system that's similar to Octopath, where you can spend some sort of currency to like boost your current attack at the expense of, you know, later attacks, right? You got to make sure you're using it, you know, appropriately. Make sure you're saving some for later, those sorts of things. After that, chased a chicken for a bit. I don't know why. Then we got a boat. We're exploring the world. It started throwing a bunch of like tutorials at me in terms of like crew level and how to recruit characters from the gacha and like the world exploration. I opened up the menu and I saw like a bunch of different collectibles that you can get, like, you know, observations or maintenance or highlights or something like that. And like it was just throwing all this stuff at me about like everything you can do in the game. And this is where I kind of mentioned like this is where it really felt like kitchen sink, disjointed, scattershot. Like it wasn't a good demo, and that it just kept throwing stuff at me after this. Like we explored the world a bit. There was like a racing mini game I could do. There was also like this dueling mini game I could do. There was also like this drinking mini game I could do. And maybe in the full game itself, this sort of like multitudes of game modes and things you can do might, maybe, I'm being generous here, coalesce into like some sort of thorough, multifaceted game. But as like trying to get a demo, get a feel for it, it made it very hard to get a feel for like what is this game actually like. And then I had to get up and go do something else after 90 minutes. If my discussion here sounds a little bit like scattershot and like all over the place, that's what the game felt like. So
yeah, it's a weird experience, right? Because this is definitely, I don't know if they mentioned if it's agree like a free to play.
It's free to
also
play,
coming to
yes.
mobile device. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those types of games these days are like they want to be like your everything game and try to demo them at a limited time. Even though you got a bunch of time with it, it's one of those games that like it expects its players to come back for their login bonuses, do their dailies, do whatever, but it's never going to make for a coherent experience because of the way that it's meant to be played by its user base as a live service. So it makes sense.
It seems like they're like trying to court be a mono gamer for our game, and which is always a big ass. Like play our game and no other game. It gives me the same. Another game that it reminds me of, at least in the way it's described, is that Ananta game, which different vibe. It's not seafaring, but in terms of like kitchen sink approach, like you can do this, and look at all this other stuff we've packed in here, and just play this game and no other game. It just seems to be the vibe I get from that one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that one exists in an even weirder realm because it got out of the gacha space. So now it's who knows what it is at this point and what it will be at its like final release. Like what does the monetization look like? And is it plagiarizing less than when it was first when it was last shown off? Because that is a game that it's like you got this, you get like some of like the web powers in it for like the characters, like that animation is like the same exact thing as like what Spider-Man does in that Insomniacs game. Weird.
Yeah.
I've said this before down on the podcast though, but like I actually recommend, if you don't know anything about this game, just to watch the RS character trailer, who is again like I guess not the player character, but pretty much the main character of the game. And it's got this sort of cartoony, slapsticky tone, which maybe not for everyone, but I kind of feel like they should almost lean more in this direction for the game. And I think it kind of showcases like the wooden puppet type characters and the comic booky type art style. But as for the game itself, like I said, seems to be a lot of different mechanics. Having the demo being like only like partially like translated apparently didn't. It was all in English, but it felt like not great English.
Right.
Didn't help. But yeah, it was not an easy game to demo. So I apologize I couldn't spend more time with it because it was the type of game you can't really,
How dare you only spend 90 minutes with it or whatever it was.
I was not planning on it. It just I kept going further and like, when does this end? And I don't think it did. Anyways. All right, I have two more things to talk about. One, I got to speak with the team at Obsidian about Grounded 2. So Grounded 2 was, Obsidian had a pretty big year last year. They released Avowed early in the year. They released The Outer Worlds 2 later in the year. But what arguably might be actually like the most successful game to some degree is Grounded 2, which released like in early access in the middle of the year. Grounded 2 is sort of interesting because it's early access. It's been early access for almost a year now. But it's also a co-development between Obsidian and Eidos. And it is on Steam and Xbox, because of course it's an Xbox Studios game, but it is coming to PlayStation 5. And I got to speak with the team at Obsidian about, their first year in early access and working with Eidos and basically the journey thus far. And, it's kind of a long form interview with the producer, Miles Winsler, who hasn't been at Obsidian for too long, but he did work on the first Grounded and moved to this one. He was at like Activision for a while. He did some production stuff on Sekiro. He was at 2K and worked on the NBA games. And he was actually kind of funny. Like he actually just said like, I worked on the RPG elements of those games. Which, like we kind of joked like, yeah, NBA, those campaign career modes are basically RPGs. to some degree. We sort of joked that we should cover them here because they could. Why not? Yeah, but he's on Grounded 2, and we talked about like the recent update, Beat the Heat. That one I actually got to play a little bit. If you're not familiar with Grounded, it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. In the first game, you were like in a backyard, and the second game, you were like at like a park. So it's like bigger world, perhaps more variety in the sorts of places you can go. But at this park in Beat the Heat update, you fight a lizard. Apparently, it's just like a little guy, a little lizard. But when you're shrunk, it looks like a big ferocious dragon. So that's what the battle feels like in that game. Is you're fighting a big dragon, even though he's just a little lizard. So I got to play that. I got to talk about that update. Got to talk about the upcoming update, which is Into the Abyss. I think it's like an underwater update that's coming out alongside the PS5 version. Got to talk to him about being in early access. A couple of fun anecdotes there. Like one of the things they had in the game was, I guess cockroaches can create milk to some degree, like in real life. And they had like this item drop called like roach milk. And yeah, and then I guess players latched onto this. They're like, "What does the roach milk do? We need more to do with the roach milk." And so Miles and his team were discussing. He said this was like some of the silliest like professional conversations you can have. Is all right. How do we take roach milk and do something with it? How do we create a consumable item? How do we balance it? What sort of cool effects does it give our players? How do we make it useful? And now in the game, if you want to, you can create a roach milk milkshake. A roach milk milkshake, which has some effects that are apparently useful in certain situations. So like kind of creepy, kind of gross, but also like that's the sort of things he gets to do. And he generally had a fondness for like the early access route to these sorts of games. He said especially for a game like Grounded, where the player base for a game like Grounded just tends to be a pretty positive player base in terms of like they're not always agreeable, but they're the type of game it is, the type of tone that it is. You have a lot of players coming at it with the right generosity and perspective in terms of where they can have improvements, where they can add adjustments or updates or whatever. And he says just kind of like being able to develop the game kind of alongside that is actually something he enjoys a lot. But yeah, it's just a long form interview about Grounded 2, the upcoming update for PlayStation 5. And one of the things he talked about, for instance, go for it.
Was Adam Bernecki there, or I forget how you pronounce his name?
He was, I think, also there, but I didn't get to interview him
because I was doing some Googling on the side while you're doing this. I know, very formal, but he was the director of the original game, so I chatted with him like 2018 era. I'm like, I wonder if he's working on the other game or if it's.
I'm pretty sure
they've got the partner with. Okay, because they got the partnership with Eidos now, which is completely different. When I first talked to him, like about Grounded 1, way back when, it was like a team of like 9 or 10 people, and it feels like it's grown a lot since then because it was a big success. It had the Xbox push behind it and all that, so feels like it's just kind of a different vibe between the first and second game.
Yeah, I actually, first of all, like I met Mikey there. Mikey's their comms director, and it's always fun to see him. I should have asked him if he played, if he got a chance to check out Stranger Than Heaven, because he's like a huge Yakuza head. But anyways,
Mikey's good.
I know it's not Yakuza, but obviously the connection there. Yeah, Mikey's good. But yeah, I actually did talk to Miles about developing with Eidos, and he basically said, yeah, we do like video calls with Eidos every week. We have a weekly meeting, and it just feels like we're all one big team. From his, the way he phrases it, it sounds like they're very cohesive in how they work together. And he basically said having this sort of mix of, the veteran team that worked on Grounded 1, and then a sort of new team from Eidos that has like a slightly different perspective joining into the fray allows them to have like new ideas or new concepts that maybe they wouldn't have considered if it was just, all the same team going from 1 to 2. So yeah, he talked about that a little bit. Also talked about, hey, we're releasing on PlayStation 5 in a couple months here. And the thing we have to remember is, while we're making a new update that's releasing along the same time, all that player base from PlayStation 5 is seeing everything for the first time, not just the new update. Like they're starting from zero for Grounded 2 if they're, if they only play on PlayStation and they're jumping in now. So we want to make sure that stuff that came out really a year ago at launch for the original early access still feels good, it's been updated properly, that it's cohesive with the rest of the game, so that that PlayStation player base doesn't feel like, they have to get through
They're at a disadvantage.
the slog, or not a slog, but like the earliest stuff before they get to the new stuff. Like, make sure it's all like one cohesive package. And it's still in early access, so like this isn't 1.0 yet, but adding for the first Grounded, I believe it landed on PlayStation at the same time as 1.0. Like, we're done. Or they didn't really call it, I don't remember if they called it early access, or it was alongside the final update for Grounded 1. That's when PlayStation was added at the very end. But here it's like partway through. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, it's a long form interview. Feel free to check it out if you're interested in Obsidian or Grounded, or just learning about one producer's kind of candid thoughts on developing a game in early access alongside a community like that. All right, the last interview I had from Summer Game Fest was actually probably one of my favorites. It was with the indie development team at Flyos, and I got to talk to them about the recently announced Vampire the Masquerade Eternal Whispers, which is sort of a Disco Elysium-like CRPG in that World of Darkness space. And though this was announced, I actually don't remember exactly when it was announced. It was like at the PC Gaming Show, I believe, in that Summer Game Fest week.
I think it was PC Gaming Show. Yeah.
Yeah, so Flyos is a Canadian studio that had primarily worked on like card games and board games, and it was more in the they actually have worked on a Vampire the Masquerade card game. I believe it's just called Vampire the Masquerade Chapters, and this is something that they've been wanting to do for a while. Is they actually are kind of switching tact and going into like video game development on this game. And Vampire the Masquerade Eternal Whispers is sort of like, not really like a direct adaptation of that Chapters game, but kind of like the same sort of concepts and ideas into this CRPG. And I got to speak with the creative director and co-founder of the studio, Gary Peitra. Not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. It's, French Canadian, but talking to him, he was like very, very obviously like a Vampire the Masquerade nut. And he even told me like he's been in this universe for like 25 years. He knows like the clan names and the clan rules and like the world lore off the top of his head. He's really into it, blah, blah, blah. And so like, even if you watch this trailer here, it talks about stuff called like the Sabbat and the Camarilla era and things like that, which I played Bloodlines, so I'm like very vaguely familiar with some of these things. Brian's played Bloodlines too, so he's probably a little bit more up to beat on some of the lore things here. But I got to talk to him about like, hey, we're making a CRPG in Vampire the Masquerade. This really hasn't been done before, so like, how is that? Like, what's the approach there? And there's two different side characters in the game, how they work. It's kind of a mission-based game, but it can branch in certain ways depending on what you do. There's some things he wasn't able to tell me, but one of the things I asked him was like, is this the sort of game that you can play if you don't know anything about Vampire the Masquerade or know very little? And he was like, well, kind of candidly, I want my wife to play this game, and my wife doesn't know anything about Vampire the Masquerade, so I want someone like her or anyone who isn't so deep into the lore stuff as I am not to be like lost or confused. It's a balance where you want it to be like a natural introduction to the world without being maybe too light or too heavy in either direction. So things like that. Yeah, and it was just a really kind of open, candid interview with a small team, kind of putting their passion into this project. Doesn't have a date yet. Just coming out for Steam. I don't think it even has a window lockdown. Very Disco Elysium inspired. He even mentioned, Disco Elysium by name. That is not, they're not trying to hide it. Definitely some inspirations there. But yeah, I think it's a really cool kind of idea and project, and I really like chatting with him about it.
Cool.
So just to summarize, you talked about Xenoverse 3, had a pretty decent hands-on time with that. Or wait, was it hands-on? You said
no.
Hands
It
off.
was just the theater.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you talked about Armatus, which was tricky because you didn't get to see a full loop of that roguelike. Sea of Remnants, you kind of talked at length about, kitchen sink approach, but you had a decent time with it. It sounds like at least you were able to have a more formed opinion because you were able to sit with it for 90 minutes. Grounded 2, kind of a long form interview, and then of course a debut project from a new studio and an IP that has potential in Vampire the Masquerade, and a Disco Elysium like with Eternal Whispers. And then we do also have a few other articles on the site from those that are not in the podcast. Scott has also wrapped up, I think, his SGF kind of like task debt, so to speak. Um, Both of this is with Bethesda. So one of them, he talked about the current team behind Fallout 76. Of course, it's been out for like 7 or 8 years now. As kind of one of those. I was watching Jason Schreier's video about live service games and about how live service is a tricky topic to talk about for multiple reasons. But how it does provide a backbone for studios to, if in the most charitable interpretation, if they've got something that they can rely on for income, then they can try more, risky things outside of that space. So I kind of see Fallout 76 as kind of that, as something that had a very disastrous launch, but has been kind of riding steady ever since then. So Scott was able to talk to the team at Bethesda about making sure that that game stays relevant. What they're doing about player balance for those that have all the top of the line gear and things like that. He even titled his preview.
Yeah, it's kind of an amusing preview where the title is How Fallout 76 is Tackling Players Killing Stuff Too Fast. And it kind of has like that, developers watch speedruns sort of feel to it, where it's just like, we did not anticipate when we introduced like this new like raid boss or whatever in this game that people would be able to down it in like 15 seconds or whatever. So it's like, we have to find ways to, kind of slow that down a little bit. Like, that wasn't intended. It's really cool that players have figured out, how to min max in certain ways to like dish out obscene amounts of damage so quickly. But like, they wanted to slow it down, but like, how do they do that properly, kind of thing.
And then in a very similar boat, he did talk to, I don't know, like if this was like a single like group event or if it was two different opportunities from the same like publisher, but Elder Scrolls Online, which has been kind of another steady thing that's been going strong since 2014, and talking about how do they stay relevant in this space where there's we talk about all the new competing Genshin likes or live service games or season passes on endless games, things like that, marathon, all those sorts of things for a game that's more classically styled like an MMO. How do they keep going in the second decade of that game's existence? So two kind of looks in at games that could be seen as long in the tooth, but with still passionate developers behind them, how they keep their current players engaged and that sort of thing. So got those two previews up on this. I don't know, previews is the right word. Just kind of like op-eds, opinions, interviews from Scott coming out of SGF. And then Adam, I think you can detail this one a little bit because I saw you talking to Junior about the Culdcept series yesterday or the day before, trying to get some details right about Culdcept Begins. And I think you could do it more justice than I can about specifically what this is and what the framing of this of what this interview was.
Okay, so I'm only, familiar with Culdcept from like the sidelines. I've never played a Culdcept game. I'm vaguely familiar that it's like a card-based RPG simulation type game. I know there was a game on 3DS like a decade ago, which was the most recent one. And so there are two Culdcept games coming out pretty soon here, and like also kind of back to back to each other. It's Culdcept the First and Culdcept Begins. And I kind of had to get it straight in my head, like, okay, one of these games is a remaster of the original, and one of these games is like a prequel to the original. Like, which is which? What is what? And they're also coming from two
When the
different
taglines are begins and the first.
Yeah, it's like,
okay.
wait, the first one is not the first one. That's not where it begins. Begins is where it begins. It's not the first, but it is the first because it begins
Gotcha.
there.
I get it.
Yeah,
Yes.
but what also kind of compounds the confusion sometimes is these games are releasing back to back, but they're both like staggered releases where they're coming out on one platform first and then another. And also, like, the physical release is different from the digital release. So it's like when you're talking about release date, you're talking about like which game, which platform, physical or digital. And they're also like two different developers. So it gets confusing.
Honestly,
Anyways,
a fucking mess.
yeah, it's anyways, to try to help straighten this out, the game coming out first is Begins. Culdcept Begins is a brand new game. Brand new game. It's Culdcept Begins. It's coming out on July 16th for Switch and Switch 2. This is the one that Junior had the interview with. This is the developer is like Neos Corporation in Japan, and they got to talk to him at Bitsummit about the game. Culdcept Begins, brand new game, prequel to the original, coming out for Switch. It is also coming out for Steam at a later date. It's just not dated yet. And Junior got to talk to the developers about, how do you introduce a new Culdcept game now? How does it tie into the original? How, taking this franchise, how did this even happen? Because it was owned by a different company, that were able to get like the rights to. And then there is Culdcept the First coming out shortly after. That's on July 30th for Steam, followed by console releases in September. That is a remaster of the original from a different developer. That was not technically like the topic of this specific interview, but obviously related. So, Culdcept Begins, the new game, prequel game, coming out soon. It's meant to be like a starting point. If you haven't played Culdcept, this is meant to be an entry point. That one. And brand new game, so it's not a remaster. There are no different versions of it. It's just one game. Culdcept Begins. If you're waiting for the Steam version, it will have one. We just don't know when. And then Culdcept the First, coming out later, as I understand it, is more just a remaster of the original Saturn game, like on Sega Saturn. So that one is going to be an older game, a remaster of something that released decades and decades ago, like almost 30 years ago. But that's coming out shortly also. So that's where a lot of confusion lies. So I hope I straightened that out a little bit. Culdcept Begins is the new game. Culdcept the First is the remaster. And the interview just focuses on Begins and how that even came about, being like a new game in the series after a decade of the previous one.
Yeah, so I'm glad I handed that off to you because I did not know all the details there. But it sounded like even Junior didn't have everything quite tied up, just because it sounds like it has not been delivered, clearly to
I know this is two separate developers, but it feels like they're gonna
cannibalize each other.
Yeah, having these two games releasing so close to each other with like similar names and staggered releases is like not ideal.
No.
So yeah.
And I think that covers all of the new articles, previews, interviews that we had up on the site. Most of them kind of just following up on some lingering tasks out of Summer Game Fest. So if you go to RPG site and hit the articles tab, you should be able to see all of those. So Adam, I know you worked really hard this week on putting all those together. Probably like 15,000 words all told, maybe in that ballpark. It was a lot, that you did a lot of writing for getting all of those up. So making sure to give them a shout out here and platform them where we can. In terms of games we've been playing, all the things that are coming out, we can't speak to freely if we have access to them because either embargoes or we haven't gotten code or anything like that. So one game that I do have on here, it's not really topical at all, but it's a game I played in May, and I basically said like, hey, I'll talk about this on the podcast once we have some time to speak to it. So because we had nothing else listed, I figured I'll just slot it in here. So when I was between games in May, I think it was before like Mina the Hollower, and of course before Elliot came out, I was like, what should I do? Something out of my backlog, something I want to play. And back at the Game Awards, we got the announcement from Larian Studios of a new Divinity game, simply called Divinity. And I had played a Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 when those like came out in the late 2010s. But I'd never played anything prior to that, like the classic Divinity games. So I made it, a task like, all right, let me get one of them knocked out. So in May, I played one of the most awkwardly named games I think out there. It's called Divine Divinity. That's the first game in the Divinity series. I don't really like the name either, but that's what it's called.
And that game came out in 2002. Is that right? Am I close?
I believe that's right. Divine Divinity. So, Divine Divinity is the first game in the series. It's an isometric RPG. Um, and then another, like I played the original Gothic back in April, and of course the remake recently. And I said, thank goodness for the GOG preservation program for Gothic because it just worked out of the box. So guess what? Divine Divinity is not part of the GOG preservation program. I think you can buy it on GOG or Steam, but it does not really work very well out of the box. It doesn't know what a window is. It doesn't look good at any resolutions above 1080p, and you could argue above 720p. It's like it was not art assets were not designed for high resolution monitors in mind. It was not designed to work well with multiple monitors because this was back in the era, I suppose, when you had one like 5x4 monitor in the center of your entertainment stand or your computer desk, and that was it. Luckily, though, back in like I was just Googling like what can I mod, what can I do to make this work a little bit better? And then someone on like GitHub back in like early 2020, I think it was 2021, 2022, just put a little thing out saying like here's something I made to help this game work better in like a borderless window. So I don't know who you are or why you did that, sir, but I'm so glad you did because I grit my teeth and got a dubious looking file. I mean, it's on GitHub, so how much it's vetted for some level there, and actually helped the game run a little bit better, and in a window. And then I still had to run it at like a low resolution so that it wasn't obnoxiously tiny art assets because that's just how that type of game scales when you try to play it in HD. But anyways, long story short, I got it to work and I played it throughout the month of May. I was reading some reviews for it from back in the day because it didn't set the world on fire. It scored mediocre, and I was trying to get a feel for why. Uh, I saw a lot of people compare it to Diablo, and this, of course, would have been like Diablo 1 and when did Diablo 2 come out? Let me see. Originally 2000, so right around the release of Diablo 2. However, it's much slower paced. It is an action RPG, like where you swing your weapon, you click on enemies to defeat them. You can cast spells, so I can kind of see the comparison, but it's a sort of game where you're fighting maybe a handful of enemies at a time, not dozens. And the pacing of your character movement across the map is much slower. You're not flying across left to right. And it's been a while since I've played the original Diablo 2 and not like the Resurrected Edition or Diablo 3 or Diablo 4. So I don't exactly have the pace of Diablo 2 memorized, in my internally, but it just feels like a slower paced game. Um, but it tells a lot of like it's one of those things where like it's interesting to play games like Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 and not really have a lot of knowledge on the rest of the series and then play the original and start to see like, oh, that's where that came from, or oh, that's where that was introduced. So one of my favorite little gameplay mechanics from Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 are the teleport pyramids. They're just two objects that you can click on one to teleport to the other whenever. So you can do a lot of things with those that are intended by the developers, and I'm sure like not intended by the developers. So like if you put one on the ground next to a place outside in the wilderness and then you get thrown in jail for something, uh no, let me get that backwards. If you are going to do something that you think might get you thrown in jail, what you can do is you can sneak a teleport pyramid in the corner of the jail, put the other one out in the wilderness, get thrown in jail, and then you're like, good thing I left my teleport pyramid in here. I'm going to pick it up and then teleport out of jail. And then I think Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 had a little bit more clever use behind it. There's actually like a little bit of a quest in the first city in the first game for it, if I remember right. But they were introduced in this game, so I'm like, oh, those weren't new. Those weren't a new idea. Those were thrown in here back in 2002. Um, it talks about the source, which is kind of like it's kind of like the force or the life stream or whatever. It's like the source that magicians draw from to be able to enact their magic. Zigzax, who is like a kind of a I'm trying to think what a good comparison for him. He's like a creature of unknown providence, who's kind of godlike in ways because we don't know how old he is. He's seemingly immortal. He seemingly has like uh some sort of like omniscient knowledge and power, but to what extent or to what side he's on, you're not sure. He's kind of like Q in Star Trek, I'd guess.
It reminds me of like Mixie in the Superman DC universe, kind of a weird god imp. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in here. And the story of the game is, I don't wanna say it's small scale, but it's smaller. It starts out small and it escalates pretty slowly. So, so you find out that you're one of 3 what's called marked ones, and you don't really know much about it, but you run into this wizard named Zandalor who shows up in Original Sin and I guess other games like Beyond Divinity as well, and he's trying to collect and, like, gather the marked ones together for reasons that you're not quite sure about. You learn that in the past that the Lord of Chaos basically was defeated by the human Reuben Farrell. And this is kind of like, Divine Divinity is the first game in the series, but even then in this game it had like, here's what led up to the situation that we're in now. But now the Lord of Chaos is like returned in some in or sorry, not returned. He's like threatening to return. So these marked ones are like kind of like a prophecy that they're going to have to prevent the return of the Lord of Chaos. So it sounds very like generic fantasy, and it kind of is. And the thing that I thought that was interesting between the Divine Divinity and like Divinity Original Sin is that the writing, and I'm not surprised, kind of reminds me of Adam. You played relatively recently, and by that I mean like 6 years ago, Baldur's Gate 1.
Yeah.
Um, and some of the writing in that game is very like it's trying to be funny, but in like
Yeah.
this weird like Monty Python sort of way. So just like weird references to like TV shows or that style of humor, and that shows up here as well. Uh, where there's certain dialogue where it's like I don't know what this is referencing, but clearly it's meant to be tongue in cheek or funny, ha ha ha. But it really isn't like in a 2026 context. So it's kind of like got this weird like Larian has that plunger icon in their logo, or at least they used to. I don't know if they do it anymore, but they did around the Baldur's Gate 3 days. Where this game both tries to take itself seriously, but then also tries to not take itself seriously. So I think depending on what you're looking for in a fantasy RPG, that could be frustrating or it could be fine, just depending on where you're coming at it from.
They still have the plunger, and in fact, their icon for like a Larian account is literally just the plunger. So,
Oh,
oh,
okay.
it's even the favicon on their homepage on your browser.
Okay,
It's
so
the
they
plunger.
still, but then you look at that Divinity trailer from the Game Awards, and like, what was funny about that? Like, it was like this is mature and serious. I guess at least that's how I interpreted it. Um, So a hero in the past defeated the Lord of Chaos. He was kind of locked away, and now the main antagonist of Divine Divinity is the Demon of Lies, who is like an underling. So it kind of scales it in a little bit. These aren't world-ending threats, but it's like on the precipice of world-altering threats.
Just to be
Um,
clear, does Original Sin take place after this or before this?
I actually don't know offhand. That's part of the reason I want to play these, and I was hoping to actually replay Original Sin. Because the reason why I don't know is A, my memory sucks, but B, when I played Original Sin, I had known nothing about Divinity, so I had no context to frame it.
Yeah.
And now that I am playing the original game, and I still want to play Beyond Divinity and Ego Draconis or whatever they're called, and then maybe I'll replay it and be like, oh, okay, that's referring to this, and that's this, and now I understand. But even in Divine Divinity, they talk about Rivellon, which is like the main location of these games, primarily, and that's got a major play in those games as well. Uh, but this one takes place in Ferrol, I believe, Ferrol, named after the hero from 600 years ago or whatever it is. And it's very like small scoped in that sense. Like there's 4 world maps. There's the area around Ferrol. You go to like the Enchanted Forest south of it. You go to like another city north of it. And then there's like a wasteland that you find yourself in. But it's like a few environments, like a couple neighboring cities. So you're not like gallivanting across the whole country. Um, However, one thing that really pads out this game's runtime is that there are just enemies everywhere. You will spend so many hours just clicking on endless amounts of orcs or spiders, or primarily orcs and spiders, but other enemies as well. And it just felt, especially late in the game, where it felt like, how do we make this feel climactic? I know, we'll just double the enemy density in this world map, and there's hardly any NPCs to talk to. So you're just running around the map, and it's got like that classic 2000 era fog of war. Like to me, I really associate it with like Age of Empires, but many games had the sort of thing where you're moving your little meeple across the map, and you can slowly see the black fog like dissipate from the frame of your character. You can improve like your sight range through abilities and skills, so that you can kind of unearth or reveal the map more quickly as you move across it. But then as you do, you see orcs running out from caves and trees, or you're in a cave and the spiders coming out from different rooms, and skeletons and all sorts of things. And one of the very earliest dungeons in the game is a catacombs underneath the city that you start out in, and it's like 5 floors long, and it feels like really overtuned in terms of like, welcome to this new game. You now have a 5-floor dungeon that takes multiple hours to go through. And I'm glad that I had a lot of resourcing to like find out, like, make sure you pick up these potions here or this item here or do this thing, because it makes it a lot easier. Because if I was flying blind, I think I would have been like really frustrated. And I think that was probably Growing Pains. This was their studio's, to my knowledge, their first game uh, in a difficult genre that is complex and hard to balance, and they didn't quite nail it. So I understand, like, I have some charitable like respect for them there, but it does come in like, it feels like the pacing is not. If the game was going to be revisited, they could probably have adjusted it in smart ways, I think. So early in the game and late in the game, you're just doing a lot of mindless grinding, and that's kind of, that might be why the game had kind of middling reviews that I talked about earlier. I will say that the questing feels pretty modern in terms of having multiple options for how you undertake quests. The questing actually feels kind of like, I'm only comparing these because I played these recently, Gothic or that era of RPG as well, because you'll have a quest log that'll tell you I should speak to so and so, but you're not told where that person is. You don't get a waypoint on your map. Fast travel does unlock in the game, but slowly and in the back half. So if you have a quest that says you need to speak to a character at the guard post, then you have to trek to the guard post, and it might take not a long time, but 15 minutes to get there. You might get distracted on the way. You might have multiple back and forth trips between different locations as you try to undertake quests. You might have a quest that says return to Isaac, and you're like, I don't remember where Isaac is. I didn't write that down, and the map's not telling me. Oh no! And I did cheat and look up, where do I find this NPC again? You know, Reddit from this era, or even like the Larian forums, I think still have people who play these games, or revisit these games pretty frequently. So there were a few times where I'm like, all right, I don't know, I don't remember where this is. Please remind me where this is. Um, and then the game also has an interesting progression system. You kind of pick, I forget the class names. It's basically warrior, mage, and rogue. It doesn't call it rogue though. It calls it like survivalist or something like that. They deal with like traps and pickpocketing and sneaking and stuff like that. But you're not locked in. You can like uh unlock abilities from the other trees, so to speak. So it very much is like a self-defined class. Like I think I picked warrior, but I ended up making sure that I could have the highest level of pickpocketing, and had some magic abilities so that I could like bless myself to give myself more combat affinity and things like that. Um, and especially in like the spell casting space, there's actually quite a lot of interesting like things that, it's not just fireball or cone of ice, or very classic, D&D borrowed ideas, but there's things like polymorph where you turn, and I know that's also a D&D spell, where you can like turn enemies or NPCs into rabbits or things like that. And I was actually struggling with a boss in the mid game that I just clearly wasn't strong enough for. He would cast like magic spikes at my feet that would instantly annihilate me. And I was like, do I have to come back when I'm stronger? But I don't want to. I want to be stubborn. I wonder if polymorph works on him. And I was expecting like, no way does polymorph work on this guy. But it did. So like, I was actually happy with that. Like, hey,
So you
they actually
turned like
made
a
this
boss into
spell.
like a rabbit.
Yep, and then I chased it around, and he still had like a ton of health, but he couldn't do anything to me. So I was just like swing, 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 swing to chip away his health. Um, I'm trying to remember that boss's name, but let's see here. I'm looking up a list. He was called like the jailer or something like that, the custodian. But I was totally expecting that not to work because, you're kind of what's the word? Conditioned to think like, oh, he's a boss, he's immune to that. But nope, he wasn't. So I'm glad I tried it. But I thought the level system was pretty neat, and you have to choose between like, do I want active abilities that I can cast or enact, or do I want passive abilities? Because you do, if you wanna succeed, like there are passive abilities like do more weapons, do more damage with swords is an ability that you can pick on level up. So as a passive ability, it kind of feels a little bit boring, but sometimes you're like, hey, I use swords and I need to do more damage. I'm going to pick this one. So you do actually have quite a lot of option, and they can sometimes play in with quests. Um, some of the logic in the game does kind of break down in ways that people like to exploit. Like one early game quest is that there's three people that are quarantined off because they have a plague-like sickness, and later in the game you can find two potions to heal them, and it's supposed to be like, oh no, you got to make a decision, who do you save? And that was how I anticipate that the quest was intended to be written. However, what you can do is you can give two of them potions, then steal a potion back from one of them and give it to the third one. I'm like, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how the logic of the game is set up. And there's certain things like that you can kind of exploit in certain ways. And the game is, of course, so dyed in the wool. I don't know if that's the right term now. That people say like, yeah, of course, you just do that and steal it back. That's what you do. But if the game was made today, it probably wouldn't be what you would do. Um, I don't know if I like the game in terms of like I'm playing it kind of for a reason. In terms of like, I want to have kind of all the context before the new Divinity game releases, and I feel like I have some time because I feel like that's not a game releasing this year or the year after. But I did like to play it as just kind of like a history lesson sort of thing. Same reason I played Gothic, right? And I did enjoy it more than I like if I were to score it, I know that's such a dumb way to boil it down, but I would probably score it in that 7 or 8. Like there are a lot of things about it that I liked, but I don't think the package comes together, and I don't think it aged well in some ways. But once I got it running on my PC, I did have a good time with it. So it was just kind of a fun thing to revisit that I threw in there in May because I was still waiting for other games to release. So I know that's probably not the most thorough looking, but I'll be playing Beyond Divinity, which is the second game in the series, which scored terribly. Famously, I don't know about famously, but Beyond Divinity is typically considered the worst game in the series. And I've not played it, so I can't speak to that. But I'm like, oh boy, all right,
You
rubbing
will
my hands
find out.
together. Yeah, yeah. So I know that the main thing about that game is that in Divinity 1 is a single player game. So unlike Original Sin, you are a character who I don't know if you're named in the game, but it's Lucian. He's referred to in the other games, that's his name. And I'm trying to remember in Divinity 1 if you're actually told that that's what your name is, or if it's just in like the supplemental materials. Because this is a game back in the era where it came with a big guidebook about like this is the background story about of the game you're about to play. It was in that era. Um, but Divinity 2 or Beyond Divinity, I don't know if it's 2 or 1.5 or whatever, there's two characters. There's like the protagonist, and then there's like a Dark Knight character who is like your shadow that you also control. And that's all I really know about it. So maybe in a couple months, or next year, who knows? I'll get to that game and be able to speak to that. But had a fun time with Divine Divinity. It's a fun game to revisit for like academic purposes. But also I just did have a good time with it. With that, we'll go into news. Now, in terms of RPG news, like there's a little bit, and we'll go into it. But we actually had a few things that we kind of put up here as like general gaming news because it's been a month. I don't know how best to word that. Uh, of course, I already kind of mentioned GTA is already just because the pre-orders went up. Kind of, I don't want to know if I want to say like suffocating the space, but it's now present in the
That's
discourse.
even
So to
that's a
speak.
whole ordeal, like in itself,
Yeah.
as well. I mean, it doesn't really pertain to us. I don't really care. Like personally, I don't care for the game. Like to me, it's another video game, normal video game release. But obviously, the gaming industry, especially the business side, has a lot. There a lot of economists in the gaming space are staking a lot on it to like sort of uplift the entire gaming industry as a whole, for it to do well, because it does take up so much mind share of the general,
That's a good
like
word for it, mind
casual
share, yeah.
consumer. and that like for a lot of people, for millions of people, this is gonna be the only game that they buy all year. There's many people who only play it like GTA Online as like their their forever video game, much like how people like have that as Fortnite in that regard. But since pre-orders went up, not even a new trailer or anything, but it did solidify the prices at the standard being $80 USD, and the Ultimate Edition being $100 USD, and the Ultimate Edition has some exclusive single player shops locked behind it, as in like there'll
And it
be
seems like they might not all be cosmetic. Someone was talking about like vehicle performance mods or something
car
like that.
mods,
Yeah.
so that's a whole thing of like you're not even getting like technically all the functions of the video game when you're buying the
Mhm.
standard $80 price of it. It's technically, if you want the full game of what it's offering, it's actually $100, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of back and forth of people defending it and people saying no, it's fucked up. Obviously, I'm in the side of that's super fucked up, but who's gonna stop them? If any other gaming company tried to do this, they would be getting raked over the fire. But obviously, since it's Rockstar, it's GTA, they have us. They're like on many people's preferences, like on a special tier that they get a pass because they're so successful, etc., etc. And obviously, there's not the place to discuss it on here, but that's just the general what's been going on in that space. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that, Brian, in that
Well, I mean,
regard.
just some like, I also don't really have any inherent interest in GTA. I've never played a GTA game. Like, I'm interested in it for like general reasons, just about like I'm curious about it, I guess, but not in terms of like I want to play it. Like certain things, certain factoids that I've heard, again, primarily Jason Schreier telling me this, that GTA 5 is the second best selling video game of all time after Minecraft, and Minecraft is on phones where GTA is not. So that's like a big thing. It's a console PC game that sold 230 million copies. And then also, like, the average American consumer buys less than 2 video games a year. So in a year where GTA releases, if you're releasing any other game of any other scale, I'm sure that's just on your mind. Where you're like, okay, these people, especially when games have gone up in price, like you said, it's an $80 game or a $100 game or plus. And if one of those, if the average consumer, one of their games is already earmarked to be GTA, and you're trying to get your game in there, it doesn't really matter if you're releasing it in November or not. Like, that's what you're up against. So I do feel for like all of the logistics shuffling. If you're trying to make your game have any visibility at all, just being crowded out in that mindshare space, but also in that like consumer, just financial space. So that's kind of why I think
This
mentioning
has
it at this
yeah,
context is
this has ripples as
valid.
well because
Mhm.
no matter what price this game is, it's gonna do extremely fucking well. It doesn't matter what the price is at this point in that regard. But I'm concerned about the ripples of it, just like how when Mario Kart World was sold as $80 when the Switch 2 launched. I think it still is being sold at $80 as well. Remember the ripples of that? Like, hey, Nintendo gets to do it, so some companies tried to, um, you know, when they were announcing like their pricing. I believe like some Microsoft owned studios tried to do that of like, oh, we're launching at $80 as well. I forgot if Outer Worlds
Outer
2,
Worlds 2, yep.
yeah, tried to do that. It's like, no, dude, what are you doing? That's such a bad idea. And obviously they walked that back before release. But the damage was in a sense already done because that was the first news that people got of it. And ever since then, a lot of people walked that back of that decision of like, hey, having $80 as a new standard for that. Now here we are again, where on paper it's gonna look really good for Rockstar, and then that'll um I assure you, many other uh publishers and developers will definitely try to ride that trend of like, hey, GTA sold a ton at that price. Why can't we do for us? That's gonna go through this whole ordeal again. There's not even like not even addressing like definitely some publishers will start flirting with the idea of like, why don't we just lock some features between this $100 Ultimate Edition thing for us, since GTA did it. They did, and it sold very well. So it's not like this is new, but it's such a toxic practice that I cannot get behind whatsoever. I do not like it, but who's gonna stop Rockstar and GTA at this point in that regard? There's so many people who will ride or die for it no matter what, and will justify it whatever way they can. There'll be people who dismiss it. They will say like they will complain about it as they hand over the $100 to digitally to buy it.
I feel like that's a gotcha game. I keep complaining about the rates, but yet I throw money at the game.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do in that regard? So hey, I mean, this is the future that people want, then this is the future that people will have. I will continue to play and support the games that I find fun to me. In that regard. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. Where did you want to go next, Brian?
I was gonna go to what was I gonna go to? Let's go to the Steam machine. So obviously we talked about the Steam controller a few months back when it released, and the Steam controller was also announced around the same time as the Steam machine, Steam Frame, and wasn't there one other thing? I'm trying to remember. Steam machine, Steam Frame.
Steam Frame and Steam controller. Those are the three things.
That was it. Okay, I thought it was another thing. Yep. And they were supposed to get more details earlier this year, but they got pushed back because of the RAM apocalypse. We could go on for a long time about that, but the prices of PC components are going up due to AI efforts from many companies and data centers and all that. And I know I'm completely just hand waving that here, but the Steam machine was one of those things affected. And we're also going to be talking about, Xbox console price increases as well. We'll probably talk about these two concepts, at the same time. The Steam machine was detailed this week finally about how much it's going to cost, what the configuration options are, and the starting price for a Steam machine exceeds $1,000. It is $1,049 for 512 gigabytes and no controller. That's the entry price. That is the starting price. If you want a Steam machine, you will pay at least that much in US dollars. The at the other end of the spectrum with a controller and a larger storage is $1,500, 1428. Basically, these are very high prices. I forget where this was shown, but a lot of people have covered these in terms of what does this compare to other pre-builts? How does this compare to the current consoles with the CPU, GPU, RAM options? They've already talked about how, they were going to go with a single stick of RAM instead of two sticks of RAM because when you're talking to these hardware manufacturers, it's almost like the mafia at this point. I'm reading, someone else made that comparison and I'm parroting it in terms of like, if you don't agree to what they're offering in terms of this is what we'll charge for you to use our hardware in your console, in your PC box, then we're not going to talk to you again.
It depends on like it's not standard throughout all of it. Like I watched the Gamers Nexus Steam machine breakdown of it, and not all Steam machines will have a single stick of RAM. Some will have like the dual channel, but it's like 8 gigs, 2 sticks of 8 gigs of RAM, so it's a dual channel, and some will have that single 16 gigabyte RAM. Like it just depends. Like there's no like all of this model will have this, and then it just depends. Like it will vary per machine because what you're getting at, it's basically negotiations. It's not, you don't have control over the point.
Yeah.
But and of course, like Steam doesn't have the same sway as like Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft in that space as well, or Apple. When it comes to the priority of the client profile compared to the other bigger power players in this space. Obviously, Valve is much smaller in that regard. So yeah, I mean, it's not surprising because of market conditions at the moment, because of AI. That sucks. And then there's also I believe it was an IGN article where Valve said like the original price they were aiming for is like around $750 for the Steam machine. Obviously ballooned because of market conditions. So $750 would be a more, obviously reasonable ask but either way at this point, I think these at least these first batches will still sell out from people curious about it. I don't know if it'll have legs beyond the first few waves in that regard. Um and like obviously the these aren't like powerhouse machines. They will not like run like the newest Forza Horizon at 4K 60 FPS. Um Obviously you'll have to aim lower and like lower resolutions for better performance in that regard. Um you're really paying for the convenience in terms of like the small form factor and the ease of just like plugging and playing, because as many people on throughout other outlets and channels have already done, it's like you can build a comparable PC that for the Steam machine specs at a lower price, but it is like your standard like big PC setup. So it'll really depend on like are you willing to pay a premium on the small form factor and the ease of just plugging playing on your TV in that regard. And obviously, much like the Steam Deck, this can function as a PC. There's like a desktop mode. Go use it out like a PC if you want to. You can set up like other stuff like emulators on it in that regard, so you're not locked into a certain ecosystem like the other standard console manufacturers. In that regard as well. So it will really depend on what you value, but obviously the big news or surrounding is like these are absurd prices um now, and it doesn't look good for when the next generation of consoles come out, in terms of like when the new PlayStation or the new Xbox comes out, what are the prices going to be on those? I think a lot of people, reasonably so, have given up on that next generation of game consoles being under $1,000. I think we're all expecting it to be over $1,000 bare minimum at this point. Uh, Unfortunately, and yeah, I mean, and also there was this, I think Xbox Wire article even said that they expect the current prices of RAM to double by next fall, by fall 2027.
Well, it seems like that's coming from multiple angles. Like Xbox Wire said it. I think Micron just said we've locked in our RAM prices for 5 years. Lenovo said they're not going down. Like different hardware of different, and I'm not exactly sure what positions all of these players play, whether they're manufacturing the chips themselves or they're creating computer components using them, like they're selling laptops like Lenovo or things like that. But basically there is no indication that this is a temporary bump. Like this feels like it's going to be the new normal, which sucks.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
I I don't know what the next generation of games looks like in terms of like what the install base will even look like. I feel like it'll drastically shrink because a lot of people will get priced out. I mean, it's not like the cost of living is getting lower elsewhere, you know?
Yeah.
People will prioritize way more important things to keep, living over, what will now become a premium hobby.
Yeah. Like the
I
enthusiasts will
feel
always be there, but that's going to be a shrinking and shrinking population of people.
I feel bad for anyone that wants to get into video games nowadays, but I love this one Twitter post from someone named Take Him. It's like going to a micro center now feels like going to a jewelry store.
Oh yeah, I saw
Yep.
that. Yeah, they basically say like there were photos of like really absurd prices on several pieces of PC hardware. Like there's like a video card on in there, like priced at like around $4,000.
That's James' graphic card. He has a 5090.
Yeah,
But
it's like
I guess it's not moronic to buy day one now. I guess
But the era of I know this is ancient history at this point, but the era of getting a GameCube for $100 or even like getting a Switch 1 at a reasonable entry price is gone. Like if you're saying like I only just want to play some handheld games like Stardew or and it's like okay, a Switch 2 is $500. Like it feels like what is the low entry? And I'm kind of asking this genuinely. Like if you just want to give someone an entry point, what is it? Is it? I guess it might just still be a Switch 1, but those aren't cheap. Like there really isn't one.
yeah,
I
I
feel.
don't. I don't know what what a low entry looks like anymore in this landscape. I don't know what's your budget, and if it's $400, good luck. It feels
I
like
guess it would be. I guess it would be a Switch Lite. But even
perhaps,
then, that's like how long is that going to be supported for like
yeah.
new stuff?
And I don't know what like
That's
if
like
you're
the
going to
best option
PC,
available.
like what's the cost of entry for like PC gaming now? Like if let's say you just want like
Ugh.
1080p, you know, are you looking at 600,
Well,
$700 for that now just for 1080p?
well, well, I remember seeing. I forget where I saw this, but like I remember seeing like DDR3 RAM, which is like 2008 era RAM, and James could speak to this more than I could. So basically, RAM that is like 2 generations out of date. Even the prices of that were like going up because it's just getting swallowed up.
Yeah.
But
I just don't know what is the breaking point on this.
mm,
What does the breaking what does it look like, and does anything come out of does anything survive out of that breaking point?
yeah, and just because it's topical to this, like Xbox just announced that in August their consoles are going to increase in price by at least $100, 150 for the 1 terabyte models. Like, and what does that make an Xbox Series? Like, that makes an Xbox Series S, which is like their entry model, like $600, I think, and the Xbox Series X like 750. I'm trying to remember what it was. Like
Yeah,
after
yeah.
the
That's
price
the
increase.
Xbox Series X digital is the new price will be $750, which is a $150 increase, and then
Mm,
the floor for Xbox Series S 512 gigabyte is going to be $500, which is a $100 increase from the old price.
mm.
So, and on top of that, Xbox also announced, the following programs to make Xbox gaming more accessible, which is, the buy now, play later, and interest-free financing. Like, oh my god, dude. So, you go pay in installments, or if you want to, this is, I don't know. I have no idea what does the future look like for games. I thought it's
Yep.
also, yeah, like a growing sector. I don't know how you grow from here.
I was
I don't
trying to
know.
figure out what the Xbox Series X's original price.
Like right now?
Laun- no, when it was originally announced.
Oh, I don't know.
The Xbox Series, and I might not get this. I'm trying to get this correct as I can with a quick check on this because I've seen things like the Xbox Series S cost more than the Xbox Series X did originally. And I was like, I don't want to parrot that because what if it's not true? But I'm going to be surprised because the Series S now is 500, and a price at launch of a Series X is 500. So yeah, basically, like you're paying for a Series S now what you would have paid for a Series X back when it launched, which for so long that's not how consoles work. They got cheaper if you waited, or they stayed the same price and started bundling games in at the very least.
I think about
That's
it
not
like
even
these
the case.
people who got like say like an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 at launch. They might get their money back just reselling
They
it.
got the best deal, yes,
Yeah,
which
like they
is
might
I
get
yeah,
a
don't know.
profit off of selling it.
I don't know the exact prices, but in Canadian it was like $650 Canadian for the X and like 350 for 350 to 400 for the S. That's when it launched. I don't know what the price is now, but that's in Canadian prices. So
Yeah, it just even jacked up
5,000.
even more. Yeah. And that's I mean I think
Well,
that's
and
there's also like that not even that the Microsoft stuff doesn't even end there. Like we didn't really touch upon this last week, but the several of their studios that they bought up, including a Compulsion, Ninja Theory, Double Fine. They're not exactly shut down, but they are currently in negotiations to be split off from Xbox because their current trajectory is Xbox is going to close them down unless they find a way forward to either buy themselves out or find someone else to buy them out. That is the current word on the street. So,
And wasn't there the thing about again, not our wheelhouse, so I'm a little not as informed, but Team Ninja, they announced Senua at the Summer Game
Ninja
Fest.
Theory.
Now they're
Yeah, Team Ninja announced Wolog.
sorry. I apologize.
It's okay.
I'm so used to talking about Team Ninja because those are the games we actually cover, and then not Ninja Theory for like Senua's Sacrifice.
Yeah.
They announced their new game, and then like within a week, they're like, "We're looking for a buyer for the studio," because and the reason why they did it in that order is because they thought, I guess, that showing off their game would make them seem more attractive. Like, look, they've got a project in the works.
Yeah, the trailer is
There's been
basically
awful-
like to attract investors, potential investors with that trailer. Not necessarily because they're gonna release it under Microsoft, which is supremely fucked up. Like, what are that is no way to announce and promote a game. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Like at this point, like if Microsoft's mentality of like how the gaming industry works and how you should foster talent is it has been broken for years. It is even more broken now. Like, how can you hope to like release release games consistently at a certain standard if you won't even have teams stay together for any sort of prolonged time? Like, you're always like rebuilding, tearing it all down, rebuilding from scratch, tearing it all down. Like, what is that, man? What is that? So, and I get and they're apparently their current roadmap, their their future forward and what they want to do is like big hits only Elder Scrolls, Fallouts, Halos, Gears of War. It seems like very small shrinking space of like anything that's not a big hit. No South of Midnights, anything, no Double Fine anything. You know, just what are we doing? What's
And this
next,
is
Brian, in the gaming space?
this is the part of me is like, do we just want this podcast to be a downer? But I guess it's just genuine, is what it is. Like, this is what we got this week. This is, I guess, on the other side of the pond, from PlayStation Studios, and this some people saw coming or were wondering if this was kind of the worst outcome possible, and it involves Destiny 2 and Bungie. Obviously, Destiny 2 had its final update partway through the month. It saw like a peak of players returning to Destiny 2 to play it, and then we were wondering like, well, what's going to be the future for that team at Bungie? Are they going to go to Marathon? Are they going to go to other projects? They're being laid off is the answer. So Herman Hull, CEO of Studio Business Group at Sony Interactive, basically said that they are going to affect a significant have a significant reduction of Bungie's workforce, including most of the Destiny team and even some Marathon team members. That they no longer have jobs. And Stephen Totillo and others, based on, thankfully, what has to be reported to, I guess, Washington State, due to that's where most of the developers work, that the number of affected workers through the Washington State Employee Security Department, this is the only reason we know, it wasn't provided by Sony, is that at 292 workers. So 300 people basically getting laid off.
Almost a
Expecting
third
to
of their
begin separate.
studio, I believe. A
Yeah.
third of the whole studio size.
But and if to me this makes me feel like you have a game that a lot of people like that have been playing for years. You even saw like the player number with the Destiny 2 a final update. And then they say we're no longer going to update this game. We're going to lay off the developers. And then just today or yesterday, Sony's like, we're going to make a push to really make an impact in the live service space. And I just don't understand how you square that. Like, I feel like I'm missing
Why the fuck did you buy
broke.
Bungie? That then,
Yeah, you bought Bungie. You have a successful game. Like, is that where I'm wrong? Like, Destiny 2 is a successful game, has thousands of players, an established player base. You say out of one side of your mouth that you want to have those live service titles that to really bolster your brand, and then you got the Destiny team, and you stop. I just don't understand how that all squares. Like I feel like I'm almost stupid for not understanding. Like, what is the goal? What are you doing?
Yeah,
This is where I'd almost
I
feel like I need to like bring on someone who works on like uh in the game business to be like, what how do you possibly rationalize that? What piece of information do they have that says this is what we need to do to accomplish this goal and it involves affecting the livelihoods of 300 people, gutting a game that people still play and love, and then say that your goal is in the exact opposite of what you're acting like what you're saying and what you're doing are at odds with each other. So I'm not even a Destiny player. This almost makes me like upset. Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing? I don't
like
know. It's bad.
the vast majority that got laid off was I've like obviously worked on Destiny too, but even then, like a good chunk of like the people who got are getting laid off is also working on marathons. You're also getting the marathon team as well in the process of this. Um, and like just looking at the timeline, it's like okay, the sudden um not shuttering of Destiny 2 because people can still play it, but the sudden news of like Destiny 2 no longer getting future updates on this was also very sudden to a lot of the people working in the game. Like only a very, very small handful of people apparently knew about that upcoming news for that game. And when that was shared, there was also talk of like, hey, there's no Destiny 3 in the works. Nothing has really been green lighted. We're still in the process of pitching projects um, in that regard. So it's like one of those things that's like because of the sudden news of it, they couldn't even get anything like prepared of like you know like like these people just didn't have a fucking choice, unfortunately, by this whole fallout. Um, it blows. So like there's no reallocation, of course. Like of in much more responsible countries, other countries in the world, these people would have had protections and gotten reallocated elsewhere and not lose their fucking livelihood. Um, regardless of how many years they've worked there, doesn't matter. It's just, it's. I don't mean to like just put on so much baggage. I just really just hate and lament how especially this part of the world treats their business sector, especially like the employees' protections or lack of.
Yeah. On to RPG news, guys.
Yeah,
It feels so ingenuine, but like that's the
yeah,
space we work in. So
yeah,
timestamp this. Hopefully it gets better. It'd be lovely to. I guess what we can do is when teams like the we talked about the Expedition Samurai's team being able to like break away from Logic artists and form their own studio at Campfire Cabal and basically like will that into existence as just an example, like people being able to say like we love what we do, we want to make these things, these works of art, honestly we can champion those. That's kind of the one thing we can do to try to keep
yeah. I
this,
mean, think about like
yeah,
the classic example is Toys for Bob, who created like the recent like new entries in the Crash and Spyro.
yeah.
Um, well, I mean the remastering for at least Spyro and the new Crash entry. Like they were able to split off from Microsoft and like buy themselves out some years back. Um, the best fucking decision it seems like they ever made, looking back on it. Because if they stuck with them, they probably would have been part of this news if not earlier.
Is
So
there
the
any been
two
successful studios that they bought out? Like a smaller studio, not like Activision or something like that.
are you talking about Sony or Microsoft or either, I guess?
Microsoft, because I remember like every company like they take over, they just kind of close them down after like a year or two. Like
I
even like
feel
Rare,
like
it's just like mm,
and I'm biased here. I feel like Obsidian has been able to produce a lot in terms of like get projects off the ground, released, sold, but they still haven't like their reception I don't think is what Microsoft was hoping for because they released both Avowed and um Outer Worlds 2 last year. Neither one set the world on fire. They've had Pentiment, they've had Grounded, and they flourished in terms of like executing projects, but not in terms of the critical reception or even the commercial reception, which feels like that's the most important thing underneath that banner. So I don't know what the answer to that question is. Who has succeeded after that? I don't really know. This week we did have a couple of small little spotlights from I was going to say smaller studios, but no, from Capcom. So obviously one of the biggest
Small
players there
studio
is.
Capcom.
Yeah, tiny studio. So this was a quick little show look in. They had about 30 minutes with some updates on Dragon's Dogma 2, Dark Arisen, Monster Hunter Stories 3, Twisted Reflection, and Onimusha, Way of the Sword. Of course, 2 of those are upcoming, and one of those released in March. Adam, I'm going to talk about this one because I think you can speak to it very briefly. They mentioned that Monster Hunter Stories 3, Twisted Reflection got a new DLC story added to it. It was basically a shadow drop, I guess, or maybe not shadow drop, but they said it's available now. You played through it. You're the one that can speak to Monster Hunter Stories 3. Just, I don't know, like your very quick micro review of that.
Yeah, so we knew this was coming. We didn't know when. So when they had a spotlight, it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. Like, oh, they might announce and release this update that we knew was coming. So yeah, it's
Okay.
If you played Monster Hunter Stories 3, this is Side Story Rudy. It's a $10 DLC as I understand it. I played it. It takes about 90 minutes, and it's gotten really bad reviews on Steam. The main reason why is like in this game you have 4 or 5 like party characters that each have like a series of 4 quests. However, Rudy, who is sort of a party character, doesn't. But this DLC gives him a series of 4 quests. And while they might be like a little bit more cinematic than like the other characters in the game, it just kind of feels like the worst type of DLC where it's like this character could have had quests in the base game like everyone else, but he didn't, and now you're selling it for $10. They're not. It's not super long or in depth. It doesn't add like a new mechanic or new system or not even a new monsty in this game. So it really feels like one of those. I'm trying to be generous, but it feels like one of those DLCs that's like this should have just been there to begin with. Yeah,
Yeah, it seems gross.
We also got some detail on the recently announced Dragon's Dogma 2 Dark Arisen. Of course, that's releasing in October, but Capcom has also announced, I think the June update has already happened where we talked about they're adding like
they're adding
more
warp stones.
teleporting
Yeah,
abilities and like basically like some quality of life, quote unquote, features. There's also they talked about that there's going to be more updates in I think August for like how they're going to change how the dragon plague works and the how many weapon what is it weapon skills that you have. I forget the name in game. Skill slots. There you go. But then they also did talk about just what Dark Arisen is going to incorporate. Adam, you were helping me like digest this before the podcast, but just talking about like the new region has like a very strong snow theme to it. Um,
I think the biggest news is the Kento Kinoshita is back to do it. He was the one who directed the first Dark Arisen expansion for the original Dragon's Dogma and also directed Dragon's Dogma Online. So this guy is kind of the goat when it comes to the Dragon's Dogma series as a whole. Of like, hey, he's worked on the really good projects, which obviously not a lot of people got to play Dragon's Dogma Online, but that guy was very beloved and when released in Japan. Had updates
mhm.
over time. So he has like has a real cool vision of like the games that he's worked on for the series. So for me, my confidence in the upcoming Dark Arisen for Dragon's Dogma 2. I hate that it's still called Dark Arisen. Um, at least him helming it gives me confidence. Like, hey, I hope this is really good, and they have Kinoshita has done fantastic work for the series.
And talk about there's gonna be new challenge dungeons, sort of thing. I don't know, pretty exciting, but also pretty like wait to see more. We do have a lot of Think Kite for this. He went to the press site and got a lot of new like screenshots for the upcoming area. The Fallen Dragon, the character EIR, um, plays a major role who's pursuing the Fallen Dragon. So cool to see all the new screenshots. Like, I uninstalled this game like earlier this year, thinking they're never gonna follow up on it, and then they did. So like, all right, had to re-download and maybe get myself refamiliar before it comes back out in October to see. Hopefully this can be the shot in the arm to Dragon's Dogma 2 in the same way that Dark Arisen really kind of ended up being the I don't know what the term would be, like the best foot forward for Dragon's Dogma 1. Really kind of that's what people really latched onto to make that game kind of the cult hit that it was. We also did get a quick preview of the upcoming Onimusha Way of the Sword, still releasing on September 25th. All the news about it potentially being moved up was just, I guess, an error on one retailer's site. Still September 25th. This was looking at an enemy called the Dohatsuten, and I can't speak to it any more than this about what was shown. I don't know if Josh or Adam can speak to what Onimusha Way of the Sword, the new little
Kind of just
footage that
like
we got.
I'm purposely not looking at any more marketing reasons because I feel like they're starting to show too much. I feel, and I was like, I'm gonna play it. I kind of still want to be surprised. I don't want to see like
Mhm.
any like I
Everything, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I really don't like how that's a lot of game marketing these days. Like, let's just show fucking everything. No, I'm
Mhm.
good, man.
And that was pretty much it for the Capcom spotlight, as far as I know, at least for the stuff that covers us. So obviously, we're all pretty excited about Dark Arisen. Monster Hunter Stories 3, even if the DLC wasn't good, seems like it was received pretty damn well. For maybe it might not have hit the bar that Capcom wanted, but it seems like the critical reception seemed pretty good. And then Onimusha, of course, I know a handful of people on this podcast really looking forward to that. Uh, the other showcase that we had this week was a quick one called the Arc Showcase 2026. That's what I wrote here. Is that what it's actually called for Arc System Works? Yeah, Arc Showcase
Yeah.
2026. So they had two titles that they brought up. One new one that we had heard about before about kind of like indie titles that they're publishing. One of them is Demon's Night Fever, and I did read up on this, so I think I could speak to it, but Adam, I think you could speak to it better. This is the creator of Disgaea fame, Nikawa. They created this like one person studio super niche to
Yeah,
like
that's like his
at least
producer name. He's like a producer for hire.
yeah, and it's kind of like it's like an LLC that you put in your name. Like I'm not a business person for that purpose, but the actual developer is Drecom, Drecom. This is a tactical like isometric tactical RPG similar to Disgaea. It has I kind of say a similar art style, but not really. It's a different art style. But got a new gameplay trailer for the upcoming Demon's Night Fever. It's going to be releasing worldwide later this year, which is I think rare for at least Disgaea games. But this game is going to be a worldwide release: Switch, PlayStation, and PC. So I don't know. It looks like if you're a fan of that style of game, you kind of already know what this is. But I don't know. I think it looks pretty neat. The other game that they showed, I believe this is the first time we've seen this one. It's called Qliphah in Providence Shadow, where Qliphah is spelled Qliphah. I guess it's like an old term for like I was trying to read up like what does this mean for like husk or shell in terms of like metaphysical human like soul in that sense. And I'm probably not doing that
The
justice,
only
but
other place I've
kind of
seen this word is like Devil May Cry 5. That's what I remember it from. Yeah, Qliphah.
yeah, it literally translates to shell or husk. Impure spiritual forces comes from a Jewish Aramaic term, but that does kind of give you the vibe of this game, where this is a what was the term they called it? Tactical counter timeline role playing game. It already has a release date, September 24th. It is releasing worldwide. It is releasing on PS5, Switch, and PC. It seems like it's a game where it's a I hate describing this on a podcast. How do I do this best? Watch the trailer. I look at this, I'm like, is this like 100 line? I've not played 100 line, but it talks about timelines. It talks about branching events in that sense. It has that really like kind of dark, moody, supernatural, I guess,
Yeah,
flavor to
supernatural
it about like
investigation stuff. I don't know if there's like really as much like timeline manipulating narrative wise. So I don't know like how
hmm,
that really factors into it. But it's very much you go off deploy on missions on investigations. I'm not exactly sure what the gameplay is. Like, there's some gameplay.
The trailer doesn't show much. It shows mostly dialogue. Yeah.
I don't know if it's like an action RPG or a turn-based thing or whatever. But yeah, might be neat.
I guess I got confused with the timeline thing because they keep talking about this tactical counter timeline, but I guess they specifically mean in battle. Can be played in slow motion, pause at any time. It's real time with pause, guys.
It's like FF7 remake. You know?
I have no idea. This enables strategic, because we don't have video of this. We're just trying to
Yeah,
parse it from the press release.
exactly.
Strategic combat that requires careful consideration. It can be slowed down and paused at any time. But yeah, we had some character art, some voice actors in Japanese. So it says they're popular. Itsuki Tose for the male and Ikumi Hasegawa for the female protagonist. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's got that definitely like occult vibe to it, like a little bit kind of like the first paranormal site maybe, but uh maybe darker than that. But
Yeah,
kind
who
of a
knows?
kind
I
of a
mean,
fun
we'll see.
announcement for a game that's coming out in like, in a crowded time in late September.
Yeah,
So
it's not
good
the
luck with
most
it.
ideal.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. I mean, hopefully it's cool. I don't know if I'll have time for it, but hopefully it's neat. It's it's funny enough. Like even though there's like RPG news at that Arc System versus Publishing, it's definitely not the biggest news of that showcase. Like it's not an RPG, but they announced that they're gonna add a new Blaze Blue character to Central Fiction 9 years after its release, 9 to 10 years
That's
after its
my jam.
release.
Peak Fiction is still getting updates, guys.
So and they're gonna unveil it this weekend at Evo. I don't think they've unveiled it at the time of the recording yet. That's like the only other fighting game I can think of that's done this is like Skullgirls, because that I mean that had a whole cycle of and journey and saga of why that happened that I won't get into, but it's definitely the last time I can remember where a fighting game announced a new character coming to it after being on the market for so long. So that's exciting. I mean, Blaze Blue is a very fun fight, and that was definitely the most unexpected news coming out of that Arc showcase.
They're probably trying to say this is the new Luke. Plays blue
I
to
don't
get
know.
the
See, I mean,
sequel.
apparently they said it's like a an existing character that they're gonna add in, so it's not like a brand new character out of nowhere. But I don't know.
Do you, I was gonna say, did you ever play that visual novel that they kind of sold alongside Blaze Blue
the
in this two?
embryo code, whatever embryo code or whatever it's called.
I don't even remember what it's called, but they sold like some visual novel or something.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I remember reading one of them. I think there were two, and I think I read one of them. And I was like, this is kind of bad.
I know it's bad, but I never read them. But I know like one of the characters like, came into it, like
Yeah,
S for example, right?
yeah.
So maybe they'll grab a character from that
No,
game, whatever
just
that
get one
was.
from the super fucking dead Dark War game, the one that killed the fucking
Dark
series.
work.
Yeah,
Can't feel back
let's
in a
go.
second.
That's what I that's my if I was a betting man, I would gamble on that because that'd be the
You'd
funniest
be
result.
betting on the World Cup right now. That's what you'd be
Yeah,
betting on.
yeah. I bet on it because it's funny. That's it. Also because I played that game, it was fucking hot garbage.
A couple more smaller announcements this week. Uh, some of these, I think, a lot of these are from Kite, who is great at like sniffing out all these like almost like Japanese or Eastern like indie or double A games. Like if a Steam page goes up, he finds it and reports on it. So it's really cool. One of these I think is a Korean studio making a CRPG, like an isometric pixel art CRPG called Wind Up Deadman. I think that the premise seems fun, and there is a little bit of like of an animation trailer for it, but we only have like very little gameplay and only a couple of screenshots. It is following in kind of like that Disco Elysium vibe, and I know Planescape and Shadowrun and others have done the same with like the scrolling text on the right hand side of the screen. Uh, with an art style that kind of reminds me of that game Eastward that came out in like 2019 or so. Uh, it is set in a they call it a cassette futuristic world, but like retro future. So that sort of vibe. Um, talks about has a strong philosophy narrative push. But the thing is, again, we don't have a lot of dialogue or footage about what this game is, but it's got some fun art and a little bit of a cool animation that kind of gives you some vibes for it. But no other, like, real details other than it's releasing on PC Steam. I don't even know if it has a Steam page. I thought this one
There's
might
no Steam
have, but
page,
maybe
yeah.
it doesn't.
Not yet.
No. So this one doesn't fall, and I that's how I teed this one up, but not true for this game. So I'm kind of interested, but also just like there's not a lot of detail. But Wind Up Deadman, this developer is Sane Nut Studio. Um, I think they're Korean. Let me just double check before I get that one wrong. So yep, South Korea. So another announcement. This is from I think a Chinese indie studio for Monster Fantasy. This is it feels like a hybrid of Monster Hunter, Story of Seasons, or Fantasy Life. It's kind of got like that chibi like Fantasy Life or Bravely Default kind of art style, but in like a setting where there's a lot of like monster hunting or item crafting. They call it a life sim role playing game that involves monsters, which I know is a broad brush to have. But I looked at this and like actually it's kind of a pleasing art style. I think it looks pretty neat. We have a pretty lengthy reveal trailer showing a lot of different like griffins and hydras and dragons and Ewok villages. The publisher and developer is called Jotoyo, Jotoyo. They also mentioned that Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley are like inspirations for this game. They're planning to hold a crowdfunding campaign in both English and Japanese. So clearly, they're just trying to drum up initial excitement for Monster Fantasy. Uh, but it seems like it's still kind of prototyping at that point if they're going to go into crowdfunding. But I thought this looked
Yeah,
pretty neat with the.
it's
Go ahead.
also worth disclosing that this was have an AI generated content disclosure on its Steam page.
Mhm.
Apparently, it's they're experimenting with additional feature powered by AI language models for like NPC dialogue, allowing players to freely converse with their favorite NPCs. So it might be like the Where Winds Meet
Yeah, that's how I
esque.
would think of it too.
Um, like it's an apparently exploratory feature exists entirely separately for the digital game content. So it's like they're adding in some form of generative AI.
But they're walling it
Um,
off, they say, basically.
yeah. So, but it's worth
Interesting.
disclosing. You know.
Yeah, while this whether this feature will be included in the final release has not been decided. Even if it is ultimately implemented, it'll be optional rather than required. So they're like, we're wanting to do this, but we know that it's a poisoned well.
I
So
mean,
they're choosing their language carefully, and I get it.
congratulations, you've already poisoned it. Like, why would you
Yeah, basically.
implement it in the first place? Sure.
Yeah. We have a handful of trailers released for some upcoming games, so we'll probably just fly through these because we'll make sure we mention that they came out if you are interested. Echoes of Aincrad. This is the Sword Art Online game releasing in 2 weeks or so in early July. Adam and I were actually talking about this right before we recorded. Like, this game doesn't want to put Sword Art Online in the title for one reason or another. But then in this trailer, they're like, "Here's Kirito and Asuna." Like, you recognize these, right? It feels like okay, they do want you to know that it's a Sword Art Online game in the trailers, at least, even though they won't put it in the title. But
I mean, the
you're
marketing of this game is like one of the funniest things ever because the Western marketing and the Japanese marketing are like two worlds apart from this because in the Japanese marketing they really push for like the Sword Art Online OVA, the unanswered butterfly thing. It's like super expensive edition. They push that super hard in the Japanese marketing of this, while obviously the Western side, it's like they put like Sword Art Online in the tiniest letters possible in its logo. Like it's Echoes of Aincrad. What are those mysterious symbols at the bottom? Who knows? You know, to trick people into like playing it in the West. So it's very what a bizarre marketing strategy for this game. Like I understand to some extent, but it's like I wouldn't say it's deceptive, but it's borderline there.
and I feel like if you're a fan of Sword Art Online, you'll be like, "Oh, I'm excited for this because I'm a fan of Sword Art Online." Like, so it's
Yeah.
I'm not sure like what they gain from that. So got a new Steam page and a new trailer for I guess not a trailer, just a Steam page for Muv-Luv Tactics. Muv-Luv Tactics, Kalidasa at Nightmare. Kalidasa at Nightmare. I thought there would be another word, but there wasn't. Kalidasa at Nightmare. We first reported on this back in 2024. So that's when they first mentioned that they're making this for PC. The new Steam page for it states that it is slated for a worldwide release on Steam next year in 2027. Oh, there is a trailer for it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta wait for a release.
I don't at this point. I've there was a time where I really liked Muv-Luv. I really liked the original visual
It's an original
novels.
like visual novel. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a Muv-Luv extra, which is even though it says extra, that's technically the first entry, and like the hidden B side of it was Muv-Luv Unlimited, which is sort of like it used to be a secret thing, but it was basically the B side of like your main character wakes up like in an alternate timeline where everything is fucked, and that's where the most beloved side of it is. Like it's basically fighting against like these giant bugs with mechs, that got a sequel to Muv-Luv Alternative, and Muv-Luv Alternative is the follow up direct sequel of Muv-Luv the Extra and Unlimited, which is like very very good. I really like Muv-Luv Alternative, but then everything else after that
open
is
secret. Yeah, it's after that no one really cares too much about it. You got like that EOS mobile game that revived again or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, you also have like a shitload of like spin-offs with it. You have Schwarzmarken, you have Total Eclipse, you have Altered Fable, which is they're like a follow-up to Alternative in some regard. You have The Day After. Like there's all these other fucking VN projects and spin-offs and all like which are cool if you were really into it back then. But now like I feel like just the IP has been such a fucking mismanaged and nothing burger that it's like I don't care. I don't care anymore. Like there's a time where I really loved this series and everything they've done to it has kind of devalued it and kind of made it all meaningless in that regard. They're also bringing over what's it called, like Muv-Luv like Secret Garden or Extra Garden, whatever. It's a mobile game that came out in Japan, I think last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. Um, and it's kind of like it's sort of a weird one because there's two versions of it. There's the all ages version, which is the one that's definitely getting localized here, and it's coming to to mobile and Steam. And then there's also like an 18 plus version of it that's like I forgot what service it is in Japan that offers that, and it's sort of I don't know exactly the age range of the characters in it. They seem to be on the younger side, and it's definitely I've seen it described as Blue Archive, but they go all the way with it, because that's 18 plus version. I'm like, I don't know if that's a great tagline for this, but you know what, you do you. You know what, if you're into that, then by all means. So that's one hell of a way to describe your game.
We also got another trailer, a pretty long one. They call it a gameplay showcase. It's about 7 minutes long for Aniimo. This is I've seen this described as the Pal World knockoff, and I know that that's kind of a loaded statement in its own right. But this is a creature collecting game that is currently taking recruitments for open beta access. That's going to occur sometime this summer, and then the game is still slated to release on both PC, console, and mobile later this year. This gameplay showcase is pretty varied. I've been poking through it, and there's like you can obviously play as your Pokemon trainer or whatever the analogous is, but then it shows you playing as like an ice creature gliding across the lake, a lion running across the fields, the dragon flipping through the air, some sort of like beetle rolling across the like it's so it seems like that's going to be like one of their trying to be one of the big selling points that you could play as the different creatures that you collect. Um, but so if Power World is more like a survival game in aspects, this I guess is leaning more to like the creature collecting action ARPG section of it. Uh, Still don't know like how focused it is, but I guess that's what the global playtest later this summer will tell us. But looks fun. It is free to play, so I'm not sure exactly how the monetization will be in terms of what the MTX looks like. But we'll have hands-on, I guess, impressions within a few months with the global beta. And I guess in a lot of ways, like monster catching has kind of been like a smaller theme of this podcast. We already talked about Monster Fantasy. We talked about Aniimo. This next one is MonCraft 1990X. This is from studio Low Bros. I guess they're like a very small team, less than 10 people, based out of Florida, I think. And this is very much we are making a game that looks like a GBA era Pokemon game. It's like on its face, like it has a hat that looks very much like Ash's or Red's hat on the protagonist. Um, Slated for PC, doesn't have a release window. This was first shown off like just I think on like the 19th, so a little over a week ago. I say the Pokemon, the creatures here look very much like Pokemon inspired in terms of like design and like art style. Uh, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to poke at what they have in the press release here to set it apart. Play solo or together, so it does have some sort of multiplayer ability. A lot of it's pretty boilerplate. Capture and train monsters, build and survive. Uh, Not every creature is hostile. Collectors, battlers, breeders, explorers discover different reasons to hunt the rarest creatures in the world. So there. Hopefully, that gave you some flavor for it. But we have some screenshots and we have the trailer up on the site if you're interested. Even the text feels like it's trying to like be that same like GBA Game Boy era Pokemon text. I'm putting a screenshot here in our chat. Just definitely feels like that's what it's going for. And that is again MonCraft 1990X. Neptunia Unlimited got a new trailer. All of Neptunia Unlimited's like marketing so far has been completely for Japan. It's got a Japan release date announced of August 27th. So we got a gameplay update, decently long, and it's interesting to see gameplay for a Neptunia game that's not a remake or from like 10 plus years ago. So, but obviously I'm not a fan of the series, so I can't really speak to like what exactly we're seeing here. But a new trailer for
Yeah,
that upcoming game as well.
it's just showing more of like, hey, it's a real time action battle system now,
Mhm.
etc.
I know, like I'm looking at it very like the frame rate looks like it's holding up, like it's not chugging, like it looks fine. Like,
It lost the soul of barely being able to run on the original PS3
mm,
hardware.
mm.
Pile game syndrome.
Let's see a couple updates from some other games that are announced. Suikoden Starleap. This is the new Suikoden game that they announced around the same time as when the HD remaster was releasing. It is going to be we've known that it's going to be coming to mobile and PC. What we learned this week is that the the official Twitter account announced that the Japanese mobile version is going to be released first, followed by the international mobile and then the PC version. And so basically the release is going to be staggered in that way in some fashion. So it'll be first playable on Japanese phones, even though it is still slated to come out globally and for PC. So that's basically the update.
What a weird fucking update because um no, why would you? I mean that is not great news for the game because that just means hey because the Japanese version is going for getting released first. That means that it potentially that the global server might be different from Japan in that regard.
Mhm.
Even though the Steam one is including Japan, which is weird, but it potentially um opens up the gate for favoritism in terms of like reward distribution um in these live service games. Like there might be disparity between like hey because like there'll be a lot of like probably freebies for the Japanese release when it first comes out. When the global version releases, will they get the same rewards? And if not, then this game is in the eyes of many going to be fucking dead because that type of behavior is um way less tolerated these days, and people have audiences have become very wary of like if you are shortchanging our release compared to like the original release in Japan, a lot droves will leave immediately. So
And the
it's
interesting
just
thing
one of
is
those.
they
Yeah,
they
it's
didn't
just
even
one of those
say
things that
like
it's just one of those things like it's already a red flag. Just say
And if they had said, like, "We're planning to release the Japanese version Q1 of '27, and then the other versions will follow later," like, it doesn't avoid the problem you just described, but they don't even provide, like, windows. They just say, "The Japanese mobile version will come first." We
Yeah.
don't even know when that will be. Like, I'm not saying they have to have a date, but at least, like, "We're planning to release this early next year or next year at all." They're just saying, "Nope, it's
Yeah,
gonna come
it just
first."
feels like this game feels like a very outdated. The way that they're tackling this is very very outdated in the way that they're marketing it and the way that they're trying to just present it. It feels like it's stuck in an era where people are over this shit.
Mhm. Here's one that another Adam and I guess we're talking about a lot of these topics before we press record. Uh, s This is Kazuma Kaneko's Tsukuyomi, and before I go on further, is that actually what the title of the game is? Because that's how we have it in our system as Kazuma
Yes.
Kaneko's Tsukuyomi. Oh, right, I must have forgotten that that's what it was called.
Well, this is the
Uh,
thing. Like well, as you're about to get to, this is a re-release, a repackaged version of a previous Tsukuyomi, the Divine Hunter.
uh, so actually, I don't Adam was trying to detail it to me because we were actually looking at different Steam pages, and I was getting kinda confused. So maybe I need one of you to educate me about this. This is like, I know what this game is, or at least I thought I did. It released on Switch, and now it's being, like, backported to PC. Adam, what are the details here?
As far as I know, that's the case. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So okay, let me break it down here.
Thank you,
Unfortunately,
Josh.
I've been following this, and it gives me no, it gives me a lot of distaste and displeasure because Kazuma Kaneko used to be one of my favorite artists ever, and that he's gone down the fucking AI hole, the generative AI hole. But basically Tsukuyomi the Divine Hunter was used to be like a roguelike game that was released just I guess on Steam last year. I forget if it released earlier than that, but that was the game that had a lot of generative AI used for it because like the cards that you play in it, it's like a deck builder game. Much of it was generative AI that was built off of like um, Cosmo Kaneko as its other art as its models and stuff. And there's like an in-game justification of it of like there's like a false god at work that's like trying to copy Kaneko's art style or whatever. Like there is in-game explanation, but it's done. It's like deployed very disgustingly. So and when that game first came out, they got into a lot of fucking I assume a lot of like legal copyright issue behind the scenes because you had like all those fucked up like DC Comics, Marvel esque, Disney stuff that like was generated in the game, but like in Kaneko's art style. But that's what people generated, and that was spread around when that first released. Obviously they did some things behind the scenes to stop that from happening, but I like it was basically I don't know how much it fucking burned, but a lot of people did not like it. I did not even touch it. This new Kazuma Kaneko Tsukuyomi was first released on Switch. That basically repackaged it so it's not. I don't know how it did its monetization because it's a free to play title, but it's now a paid like package of like a lot of like hand selected cards that are both uh, illustrated by Kazuma Kaneko and also ones chosen by the community that were first originally created through generative AI that was built on the that was modeled after Kaneko's art. So that's basically what Tsukuyomi is. Kazuma Kaneko's Tsukuyomi is this repackaged version of a game of a free to play game that both use generative AI in large extents of the game. It fucking sucks. I don't like it. I hate looking at it. I hate acknowledging it. I don't like Kaneko's path. That's
And
the
I
long and short of it.
and the AI tag on it, at least according to Kite on his art news post, is the game utilizes generative AI for images, video, and music. It's like that's pretty damn broad.
Pretty much
Like,
everything.
Yeah.
like it uses AI for the game. Like, oh, okay. But no, thank you for suffering and giving us all the clear details on that, Josh. But yeah, coming to Steam in late July on the 24th. I guess the new version or whatever is being backported
I
to
just
Steam.
since it's airing right now, but they're currently showing off the new trailer for Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising, the fighting game, showing id as a new playable character coming to it, which is fucking awesome. The id from Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Mhm. Going into sales numbers, just very quickly touching on these. Sega posted its basically management meeting 2026 slide. So sales updates for all of its, all of its series, including the RPG series that we touch on here. Persona 3 Reload is over 3 million copies. Persona 5 Royal is 8.5 million. Metaphor Refantasio 2.5 million, which is obviously it's a success, but you compare that to Persona, and you're like, I wonder if that was what they were hoping for Metaphor, or for a new IP, that's what they were expecting, or if they were hoping for more, just not sure. Like a Dragon Gaiden, 1 million, Infinite Wealth, 2 million, Shin Megami Tensei 5, the original, and Vengeance, 2.4 million. So, I don't know, seems like a pretty healthy slate of numbers to me, but I obviously don't know what Sega and Atlus, what their benchmarks were. Kingdom Come Deliverance has sold over 6 million copies. And then Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader, which just recently got its console version, or Switch version at least, over 2 million copies. I think that's pretty much it for the sales rundown. And then dates, not a lot here, but a handful of them. The Witch's Bakery. I don't remember if we've covered this game a lot. It looks like it was first announced we first covered it back in May. It's going to be launching on August 20th for, I think, all platforms. So Switch, Xbox, PlayStation 5, and PC. Enshrouded, which is I think it's a survival crafting game, right? I know it was really popular back when it released in early access in like 2024. It finally has a release date for its 1.0 version after over 2 years in early access. Enshrouded will be releasing in 1.0 in October, on October 15th, 2026. Again, crowded window. I have a friend IRL who really loved Enshrouded. So I might pick his brain about his early access time with the game, and see if he's excited for the full release in October. And there is a THQ digital showcase that we'll keep tabs on for early August. They primarily mentioned to give updates for Fate Keeper, which recently entered early access, Expedition Samurai, which we talked about, and Titan's Quest 2, which has been in early access for a while. And we actually get a lot of press releases, right, Adam, on Titan Quest 2 updates. Like, it's being updated frequently in early access. But we tend to be hands off in early access for the most part. But the fact that they're updating it pretty consistently, I think, is a good sign. So maybe we'll get a release window for that. But that's just me guessing. But that will be in early August. That's it for the news headlines that I had. So, for reasons out of our control, a little bit of a down week in the gaming space, but still things we're excited for, and we're quickly moving towards that September October timeframe for upcoming games. I know a couple of us are still playing things that are under embargo that we're excited to talk about. I took a look. We don't actually have anything on our RPG release calendar between now and next podcast, so I'm not sure what we'll talk about. One game that I have been interested in, maybe just poking at just for nostalgia's sake, is the new Star Fox. So maybe I'll grab that and play through it and give some impressions. I'm not sure. But that's a
I
game
can
I grew
talk
up with.
about random Japanese games, but I don't know.
I
Maybe
mean, we
we'll talk
encourage
later.
it. You're locked in. Now you're here next week, Chow. You're going to talk about whatever you're up to.
All
You're
right,
booked.
I'll do it.
There you go. Obviously,
Hopefully,
all those previews that we started with this podcast are up on the site. All the SGF wrap up from Adam primarily that he spoke to, and Scott and Junior. RPGsite.net. Hit that articles tab. Like Adam said, RPG site is turning 20 years old, so we are going to have some information for that. At least some celebrations for that over the next week or so. I'm actually kind of in the dark about what that all entails, but sounds like Alex may at least be doing like a retrospective post of some nature. But if you follow us, if you listen to the podcast, even though we haven't been going for 20 years, we do appreciate it. Thank you all so much for listening. Join the Discord, discord.gg/RPG site. Comment on the site post, whether it's a review or a news post. We'd love to see those. If you listen to this podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a like on our YouTube uploads. Barely a week removed from Josh's cool hands-on time with Endless Ragnarok, which is a game we're looking forward to in early July. So we have that video up on the YouTube. Yeah, it pretty much covers it. Oh yeah, social medias. Search for RPG Space site. You should be able to find us on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Facebook. We're on all of them. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from us then, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to y'all later.